Today, I'm going to start a new phase of this podcast. I think it's about time since we have reached more than 30 days of me just talking about lucidity, and basically a daily audio journal is what I've been doing with this podcast. But I feel like it's time to do something different. And the thing I've thought up, because I needed a slot or basically a new 30-day challenge to fit a timeline for my YouTube schedule. That's the main catalyst of this new phase of this podcast, which is kind of funny in a way, but 30-day challenges are sort of my thing right now. And I am definitely just going to do this to the best of my ability because I want the challenge to be done well. But basically, it is reflecting on my life for 30 days. So that's what I'm going to do with this podcast, because this podcast is lucidity, and lucidity just represents awareness and being aware of oneself, being aware of one's life, what you want in life, what you're doing, and all that stuff. That's what lucidity is. And a part of that definitely is related to your entire life and understanding, why you are the way you are. So for me, that's what I'm going to be doing for the next 30 days for this podcast. I think I might sort of just have like a theme like that every single time, like a new challenge for 30 days or whatnot. I know that it means that this podcast is not going to be exactly consistent all the time, and I won't be doing as much audio journals, but that's okay because I still have my regular journal and I can type in as much stuff as I want to for that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and state the theme of this episode. So this episode is going to be about how I got to the place I am now. How did I get here? What were the steps leading up to here? Not the whole thing, but like the current events, the big highlights that sort of put me on this path of 30-day challenges, doing YouTube and doing things that are kind of unconventional. Because at this point in my life, I've met a lot of people, and I will say that a lot of people don't necessarily do this. It's not a common thing, even though to me it feels common because I'm very used to it. But that is the question that I will try to answer in a sort of succinct way. I don't want these to be too long. So let's go ahead and start with that. So the first few episodes of this podcast in general, I had like some meltdowns, I think. it would have been like day 3 or 4 or 5, somewhere around there, where I basically was super angry at myself for kind of being a failure in life in my late 20s and all that stuff, like not accomplishing all the things that I wanted to accomplish. And I do think that's true. I think there's a lot of things I definitely have not accomplished that I thought I would have already at this point in my life. So let's start with that. Where did those expectations come from, and why did I have that meltdown in the first place? So it starts with college, I suppose. I'll get into my actual college life in a different episode, but in college, I figured I wanted to take a gap year after I finished undergrad. I went to Occidental in Los Angeles, same school as Obama went to, previous US president, and he only went there for like 2 years and then transferred into Columbia afterwards. So it's not that big a deal, but like people at Occidental College like making it a big deal, I guess, or at least they like talking about it. Anyways, that's besides the point. So what I wanted to mention was that I feel like during college, when I wanted that gap year, because I got really sick and tired of school, because in general, I'm not someone who enjoyed school. Like I had a lot of trouble paying attention in classes and all that stuff. Again, I'll talk about this later. But at a certain point, I was just like, let's take a gap year. Let's not try to get a master's right away, and take a break and see, sort of like reorganize and replan and see if there's anything else I want to do. And towards the end of college, I graduated a year early. My third year, I was sort of like, okay, there's this thing, like I have a friend that also sort of wants to pursue unconventional paths. So we would talk about it very often, and we would brainstorm ideas of what to do. And one of the first few things was actually like trying to create like a game, a mobile game, essentially. And that wasn't very successful at all. We created a prototype like after I finished and graduated college, it took us like a few months to really actually get going. I also started a part-time job at the same time, and I did my best to create using Unity a prototype of game ideas that we had. They were mostly my ideas, I'd say. My friend was sort of just there as like a bouncing board, I guess. But yeah, a lot of my ideas that I wanted to just bring to life, I guess. So I can describe the games. One of the games was, I forgot what I called it, but I think I called it Light and Dark. And what it was like one of those 2D type of games where everything is just a basic shape, like a square or a rectangle. And it was supposed to be a rhythm game where the squares are black and white, or imagine the background is complete white, and then imagine certain squares. You are one of the squares. Let's say you're a black square at this moment, and you're on the left side of the screen, and blocks just sort of come at you from the right side, going towards the left. So it's one of those very, very basic games you might have played like from your childhood. I remember playing one where it was like a McDonald's toy with knuckles, and there's like this soccer thing, and you just dodge the soccer balls, I guess. But it's very similar to that, where you dodge the blocks. But when you click a button, it inverts the colors from black to white, and vice versa. And then there's different obstacles. So the idea was during this rhythm game, you would have to swipe up and down to dodge blocks, as well as hit a certain button to invert the colors so that the stage would change into new obstacles that you can actually dodge, because there would be occasionally like impossible things to dodge. So that was the concept of the game that I came up with. I still think it's kind of a cool concept, but obviously as someone who had zero experience with creating games, I actually created a prototype that I played on my phone, but it was very janky, very like not sellable. So I created like 2 different levels that were very short, under a minute. And I think I'm pretty much lost everything at this point. This was a while back, at least 7, 8 years ago at this point. So that's sort of what I did right after finishing college. And then after that, we took a small break, I guess. And actually, we tried to do a different game, a second game. I don't know why we didn't like try to complete the first game, but I guess it was just practice. We always called it practice. So the second game was essentially us doing, in this one, my friend was able to help out by creating art assets occasionally. They were kind of like smudges on occasion, like very simple character stick figure like things. And then again, I kind of did the rest. So this game idea was, I called it Grapple Man. I actually thought the name was kind of funny, Grapple Man. And it's like a person with a grapple gun, sort of like Batman in a way, that if you imagine a field like a sky, and then there's like rotating circles, I guess, like targets. Just imagine random targets on the field. Like let's say one on the middle. And this guy the level starts off with him like on a wall, grappled to the wall, like hanging on. And then he shoots the grapple gun, and then he hits the target, or, you have to aim. And then if you hit the target, then you go to the target and grapple to it, and you're now hanging on the target. And the thing is that the target constantly rotates. So you're now constantly rotating, and then you just have to sort of like time the grapple gun with the rotation to hit the next target. And that is the whole game, and see how far you can get in terms of points. That is the concept I came up with, and I thought it was a pretty interesting concept, and I thought it was fun, and I managed to create a prototype of it as well. Again, it was super janky, but yeah, I think I actually have like a recording of it, of maybe both of them. I'm not sure. I might have lost it at this point, but I was happy to have created those prototypes. It was like a good 2 to 3 months for both of them combined. So we didn't spend too much time on it. But I think at a certain point I was like, hey man, I feel like I'm kind of doing most of this. Like, we're just meeting to talk about it, which is good. But at the same time, it didn't really feel like we were making much progress. And I kept on saying, I want to release one of these things. That's my goal. I want to release one of these things. And my friend was very like reluctant to do so. Uh, yeah, not the best team. It was kind of the only team I knew of because this was right after college, and we were good friends for a very, very long time. But you begin to realize, like, this is not a slight against my friend. I care about my friend. I love him. He's a great friend, but he's not exactly the best person to work with. He might be now. This was a long time ago, especially after college. You're better at saying things and talking about things, planning things, rather than actually doing things. But for me, I guess I always had that capacity to like get some things done. I was very slow at it, but I still managed to get stuff done. So after that, we took a break. We were like, okay, what's the next move? Like, we want to create projects that can potentially earn us income. And we went to website stuff. We were doing some web development, like getting into that. It didn't get very far. I ended up just looking into WordPress, and eventually I did create my own website. You can actually check it out. It's a very, very simple website, and it's kind of slow. It's hosted by WordPress. There's definitely some inefficiencies in it. I also managed to actually get a client and make them a website using WordPress as well at a certain point. So it did earn a little bit of money, very, very little though. It was interesting for sure. Good learning experience. I feel like I've forgotten most of it, to be honest. But honestly, what I did was just look up YouTube tutorials and follow them. So I bet I could do the same thing if I needed to. But that was what we ended up doing. Again, on his side, I don't think he really did too much regarding website stuff. This ended up being more of like, okay, like that's our next goal, but we're not necessarily working together. It's just something we'll both look up and try. But I think at that point afterwards, we were like, oh, brainstorming again. And we came across a program called Jump Cut. I don't think it exists anymore, or I don't think they're still selling that course, but it was like a course about YouTube, and they had really good marketing for sure. They're like, oh, we teach you everything about being viral on YouTube, all that stuff. And I was like, yo, this is legit. Let's like split this. I split it with me, my friend, my cousin, and my other friend. But I ended up this was like a supposed split, and I think they didn't actually really want to split it. So I ended up just being like, okay, you know what? After 2 to 3 years later, after certain people did not pay me back, I was just like, oh, you know what? It doesn't matter. So basically I paid all of it, and it was like a pretty pricey course, about $1,000. I paid close to all of it. I think one or two friends might have paid a bit, but they didn't really use it at all, thinking about it now. This was around the same time like I started the channel Dreamlit. Like, we got into it because of that video or that course, Jump Cut actually. And we were talking about it and saying like, oh yeah, we're gonna try this. We're gonna make some YouTube videos and see if we can follow this. But it sort of fell into the same issue, unfortunately. We had meetings a lot, and I kind of was the dictator of the meeting, honestly. Like, I kind of just said, okay, we should do this, we should do that. Let's try this, let's try that. And I did my best to not be a dictator. I was always like, okay, what do you want to do? What ideas do you have? But oftentimes I found myself just waiting for responses, and they never had any will or actual response. And then what ended up happening after the meetings, where we would play like some Magic the Gathering or something, which was fun for sure, but like it was very, very unproductive, I'd say. And I could tell that there was no true will. At a certain point, even one of my friends was like, you know what I think? My honest thoughts, I think that those two, the only reason why they're doing this is because of you. And like, you're the one that's like motivating everything. Like, without you, basically none of this would be even happening, which is very true, because I ended up continuing on my own without support and friends and stuff, unfortunately. I felt kind of disappointed by it, to be honest, at the time. But of course, now everything's fine. Back then, I was definitely feeling quite sad and disappointed and distant from my friends, from the people that I was working with. But now I'm totally fine. Like, they're family and friends. I still care about them a lot, and we're still good. But a part of me during those moments, like, felt kind of alone, like very alone. Like, I didn't feel supported in a way. I didn't feel like what I wanted I could do with others, even though I remember telling my friend all the time, like, if I really want this to work, I really want both of us to be able to do this. Like, I don't want to do this alone. I really don't want to do this alone. Like, I told him that straight up, and that's probably why I stuck with my friends for so long, even though like I could see that they weren't really, their heart wasn't in it. Their ability to actually follow through wasn't there. But I still tried to stick with them. I still tried my best to make stuff happen with them, because I just didn't want to be alone. That was the primary reason. But inevitably, when people don't follow through and do what they say they're going to do and deliver on what should be delivered, there's a point where you just tell yourself, if this is what I really want to do, if this is what I really want to try, you just got to do it on your own. And that's what I did. And pretty much from there, I kept going and kept making different YouTube videos. And a lot of this, I'm going into detail quite a lot actually about this, but I have like a summarized version on my main channel, or at least I'm going to post it, which I call the end of Dreamlet, which is the end of my main channel as it is, and sort of shifting it to be like my name instead, since I created that channel name while I was with my friends. And it was under the premise that, we're all going to do something. We're all going to make some videos on this one channel, make it together and all that stuff, inspire others, whatnot. Stuff you say when you have no clue what you're doing, basically. Like all of those things now for me, I don't really have ideas of grandeur. I don't have like this grand plan or whatever to inspire tons of people or something. I just want to do my thing. I want to create the things I want to create and share the ideas that I have. It's nothing like crazy. Like personally, I don't really think I'm very special. I think that I'm very fortunate and lucky, and definitely I have lived a privileged life, even though, I'll get into it in later episodes, even though there were some not so great moments in my life, primarily my parents' divorce, and yeah, just primarily that. But for the most part, I really think that I've lived a really good life, and I don't take it for granted. But after that, when I continued on my own, I sort of just kept going with the idea that I would eventually make something out of, YouTube or out of this online thing. I guess I just continued without really looking into other things. Like I went full on YouTube. I gave all my attention to it while doing my part-time work. And eventually, I don't know, I just had random ideas like, okay, eventually when I burnt out around that time, because I eventually did burn out. I think I wrote it in the script because I was able to look it up at the moment, but it was the end of 2021, I believe. And I started the main channel around 2018, the beginning of 2018. So 3 years of just trying to do stuff on YouTube and trying to make it as successful as I could. And I wasn't very good at following the instructions of jump cut as well. If I were, I think I would have definitely been more successful. But overall, I definitely upgraded. I definitely improved for sure over time. Like that's just the nature of things. The more you do it, the more you get a sense of how to do it. Like I think that's the case for everyone. It's not like everyone also progresses in a different rate and learns at a different rate, but that seems to be true for pretty much like almost all cases, I would say. But yeah, honestly, I just had random ideas of like, okay, I've heard of Udemy before and I've heard of Skillshare and stuff like that. And I was like, why not try to create, actually after one of my videos blew up, the how to create a whiteboard animation one, I was like, let's create a course on this, like this is something that a lot of people say it's a good idea. Jump Cut, same people from Jump Cut created another course that was like, how to create an automated income machine, and that course talked about making online courses. So I went through the entire course, I made an online course, I followed through this time around, and it was like, wait a second, this thing says that you need to already have an audience and stuff like that. So I didn't really have an audience, except that video got a lot of views. So basically what I did was link my course to that video. And I think at this point I have gotten a few, not a few, but like I haven't counted, but if I were to guess, I would say around 50 or so, like maybe 40 to 50 or so students. So people bought from that course, and that course is like $70. I priced it at $70. And I also created another course about habit mastery. That was around the time that I was like full on into reading self-improvement books and all that stuff. And that's why a lot of the early content is about self-improvement. And when you feel like you've learned a lot, you digested a lot of information, and you've taught that information as well, you also feel like you can create a course around it. And I do feel like my 30-day habit course is a pretty decent course. Like I think it has a lot of good information in it, but it lacks experience, I'd say. It lacks the experience I have now in terms of video creation, as well as actually building real habits that last, I'd say. So I have way more insights on it, and I definitely will include that in a future course that I create related to habit building. It's most likely going to be my 30-day challenge course, since I've been doing so many of those lately. I have a lot of insights regarding that. But yeah, those two courses, that habit course I put on Udemy, and it's been getting some sales occasionally here and there as well. So those are two things that I created that continuously generated some sort of income to this day, actually. So that was cool. And afterwards, I continued with YouTube. Then I got burnt out. And then I decided to create more classes for Skillshare specifically. I'm not sure why I decided to do Skillshare. It was just sort of like there, like I just knew it existed. So I tried it, and I thought it was like, oh, this is a cool platform. And then I uploaded some courses, and eventually I got like a staff pick, which was one of my goals. I was like, okay, what I want to do is get a staff pick on this site. My goal is $1,000 per month. I got pretty close at a certain point. I had my highest amount was like $950 something dollars, or $900 something dollars, I believe, for that month. So I didn't quite reach 1,000, but unfortunately, Skillshare pulled back a little bit on how they pay people, and it's just not as much anymore. So these days I've been just getting like average 500 something per month, which is not bad considering, these are courses I've created a while back, and like I don't have to do much anymore. So I think it's because I saw some little results that I kept going, and eventually for Skillshare I got like top teacher. Like they have to sort of scout you out, I guess, and then choose you and invite you to the group of top teacher, which is how I got invited. And because you're a top teacher, you kind of have to keep making courses every 6 months. And I don't mind doing that, since creating a course, especially a small course, is very easy. It's like the equivalent of creating a tutorial, like a really well-made tutorial. So to me, I can definitely do one of those every 6 months to continue earning that like 500 a month essentially. But I think that's also why like I've been sort of in that mode, is like that I had that certain goal of like 1,000 a month, and also just doing like online courses, YouTube. It's because I, heard about it, got influenced by others, saw it as a possibility, and was like, okay, I want to try that because it sounds like a good thing to try. And I do think it is. I think having the skill to be able to create like educational content and sell it is probably one of the best ways to earn like money over time, in a more passive way, I suppose. You create this stuff once, and then you just continue to promote it and market it. Like I definitely can see myself doing that for something like piano, where I have a lot of knowledge as well as passion for. For something like video creation, which is my niche for Skillshare, I'm kind of bored of it, to be honest. It's like once you teach a certain amount, there's nothing else really that you need to teach other than maybe new tools or like how to make a specific thing. So to me, I'm pretty bored with it, and I don't think I'm going to spend too much effort on it from here on. It's more so just like doing it for the sake of the fact that it's already there. And that might change though. I might be inspired by like a new tool. For instance, the Premiere Pro has this speech to text type of thing, not speech to text, but it's sort of like transcription tool. There you go. And what you do is just drag on audio, like I can drag on this audio, and then it'll just have this basically fully written out script for you that you can edit. And I thought that tool was so cool. And I love it so much that I created an entire course based on it. So, stuff like that can happen where I feel like, yeah, this is exciting. This is nice. This is cool. But it is once in a blue moon. Anyways, so those were the things I was doing for a very long time. Like that plus my part-time work. My part-time work just involved some sort of like programming. I programmed some stuff for Excel at a certain point. And I also did some website management because those are like some skills that I had. I studied physics, computer science, and math. I majored in physics. I minored in math and computer science in school, in college. So I do come from like a STEM background. So I have that knowledge and I have that ability to sort of like be able to think in those ways, I guess. It's like a more logical way of thinking, I suppose. So yeah, I was able to do some cool stuff with programming for my work, actually. I felt like it was pretty fun at a certain point, related somewhat to some automation, just like automatically filling certain things in, stuff like that in Excel, data related things. But yeah, that was part of my part-time work at a certain point. And I think that basically catches us up to today. I feel like in terms of what I've been doing for what I consider like related to success or like failing or my expectations for today is all related to what work, income, and the projects I've been doing. So that's what I have been talking about for the past 30 or so minutes. And that's where I'm at right now. It doesn't feel like much. The fact that I can condense it to so little is kind of a little sad to me, because I guess I could talk more about my YouTube journey, but honestly, a lot of the videos I created were just like on the spot moments, like me thinking up like, okay, this seems like a good video idea. Let's just make it. I kind of didn't have a grand strategy, despite the fact that I made like a video saying like, oh, I have a master plan, blah, blah, blah. That was just me copying like Tesla's master plan thing. To be honest, I just thought it was cool to have a master plan. But I never truly followed through all the way with that master plan, although in a way I have touched on all aspects of that master plan in my main YouTube video. It consisted of like 4 pillars of P's, I think, like people, productivity, perspective, and something else. I've honestly forgot at this point. It doesn't matter. But I definitely talked a lot about productivity, and I've talked a bunch about like making friends and stuff on my main channel as well, even if it was more so podcast form. And perspective is like a purpose. That was the other one. So purpose is a big one, and I feel like I'm definitely going to be talking about that a lot more once I reach that 30-day challenge course as well, because purpose is a big one, I feel. And I have that theme throughout the channel as well. But there is no perfect guide for these things, and that's something I didn't realize back then. It's something like I was like trying to make something that doesn't really work, that doesn't really fit everyone, you know? Sure, there are definitely some universal principles that will help no matter what, but at the same time, creating a specific guide for those things it's like kind of like a wild goose chase, I'd say. The best I can do, in my opinion, is to basically highlight my own experiences and give advice based on my own experiences, my own life, what I've done, and try to help people that way. And perhaps for the 30-day challenge program as well, I want to eventually help people on a more personal level, or at least like in a way where I get to interact with them directly or closer to directly, rather than them just watching my content. But yeah, that's where all the expectations came from, you know, because when I started YouTube, I was like, okay, you know, I'm going to reach at least 100,000 subscribers or something like that, and get a lot of views, be able to make a living out of it, have the freedom that I want, because that was a big part of why I started it in the first place, because I didn't want to have that like 9 to 5 work and all that stuff. Now I'm actually like okay with that. Like I'm kind of curious about what it would be like to work fully like a 9 to 5. I sort of did that after college finished for a little bit. Like I did work full time for a little bit and I didn't enjoy it. But after that, I became part-time and just kept doing the YouTube stuff. But to be honest, like the YouTube stuff was, man, I spent a lot a lot of time on creating videos. I remember working like a whole lot, a whole lot of hours on each video and staying up late to edit, staying up late to finish videos for clients as well, because I did start doing freelance for video as well. I don't do that as often these days because I don't enjoy it. Instead, I do freelance for voiceover, which I very much enjoy. And I have continued to do that on Fiverr, actually. I started that last year. So I guess that's part of the journey as well, is my Fiverr journey. I am a level 2 seller now for voiceovers, which is really cool. That's like one level away from being a top seller. And yeah, I really enjoy doing voiceovers. It's like very fun and straightforward work. You just get direction from people and then they pay you a fair amount. At least I used to charge very, very little, like $5 per minute. That was like dirt cheap for a voiceover, I'd say. Possibly not that cheap if you do audiobook work, because audiobook work can range from like what, $50 to $150 per finished hour. And per finished hour means like you probably did a voiceover longer than 1 hour and you're getting paid $50. That's like what, $1 a minute, less than that. So to me, that's crazy. I would not want to do that. I looked into it for sure. For my current price range, it's basically a minimum of about $30 something, $35, I believe. And that's like a minute right there. So to just do like a voiceover that's about a minute long and get paid around like $30 is super solid in my opinion, because I can get that done in under 30 minutes for sure and send it to the client. If they don't like it, I can revise certain things. So maybe another like 20 or so minutes, possibly, probably less. I am definitely overestimating the amount of time, but usually I can get these things done in under an hour. And sometimes like it's also a bigger order and that makes it like a bigger price as well. So it's very fun, pays well, and is a thing that I just really enjoy doing, I guess. So that's part of the journey also. And now the expectation for myself is to be able to make YouTube work out, make some sort of business out of it, some sort of digital online business out of all the skills that I have, because I do have the skills for like digital creation. I do have the skills for creating content, for writing scripts, and for all of it. It's been something I've been working on for the past 5 years or so. So I have the ability. I just need to make stuff happen now. And now that I'm like fully healed, fully like back from burnout, I truly believe that I will make some good moves, I think. The whole Japan experience was very, very helpful with that for sure. And knowing what I'm fighting for, like having this like goal in my head, this vision of me like being able to do my thing in Japan, like it just seems great, like too good not to try and do something for. But at the same time, I am still practical, and I do feel like finding a job in the meantime as well is a good one. I do work part-time still, but I think it's not quite enough. I do feel like when I talk to my friends, since I do have a lot of friends in the STEM field based on college, and I have friends in the medical field as well, and I talk to them about pay sometimes. I talk to them, or mostly they bring it up, but it's just like stuff related to that. And when I hear it, I'm like, dang, they make a very, very good study amount, like 6 figures, stuff like that for a lot of my friends. And I just feel like in that sense as well, I'm quite behind. I'm quite like not a success. I'm a failure in a way because of the money aspect. And yeah, it is kind of true, but a part of me doesn't mind it. A part of me feels like what I'm doing is I'm investing in myself to be able to make even more than that in a shorter amount of time in the future. That's always been my strategy. That's always been something that I said that would happen in the future. And if I don't make it happen, then it's all for nothing, So all the experience I have is for nothing. All the experience and skills that I worked on will be for nothing, and I can't have that. So that's what led me to being so disappointed in myself and so mad at myself. And that's particularly why I feel so like driven to accomplish the things that I want to accomplish right now to stay away from entertainment media because like I said in a lot of the previous episodes, I've been doing that challenge and it's like one of the best challenges ever because staying away from that stuff gives me so much time to actually work on the things that matter to me. And yeah, it's definitely a life-changing habit if you can manage it. And if you're in that stage of your life where you want it enough to actually implement it. But yeah, that is pretty much it. My reflection on my current state, like how I got here, my feelings in that first few days, that episode where I was mad at myself. And this episode definitely lasted for quite a long time. So I think it's fair to end it here. This was the first chapter, I'm just going to call them chapters, I guess, of reflection, life reflection. And I feel like it was a good one. It's good to review like all the stuff that led me to, all the things I'm working on right now, like why I'm working on it and how I ended up being able to work on it, I guess. So let's continue with chapter 2 tomorrow. I think each episode is going to be a new theme, and we're going to talk about probably college in the next episode. And then from there, I can go into school or high school or stuff like that. I try to vary it to make it more interesting so that it's not all about school stuff, but I do want to be specific with the themes since we do have 30 days of this and I don't want to run out of topics for life reflection stuff. Okay, so that's it for this one. I'll catch you guys in the next one.